You Philly media just trying to stir controversy. This is what they gave us. I mean, this is why I think they were so angry inside the organization. This isn't like the middle of the season where the next day you get the team again and they're able to correct whatever was said. There's a month and a half now of no news coming out of the NovaCare complex, and the last thing we're left with is that.
Welcome back in, everybody, to Tuesday's edition of Birds 365, joined now by Bill Colarulo, the married man. What's going on, Bill?
Yeah.
What's going on, gentlemen?
How you doing, Bill? How was it? Tell us. You look different. You look.
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah.
It was great. It was a good wedding, great trip. I'm happy to be back, though. I mean, as much fun as we had, my wife and I both are creatures of habit. So 7 days away, I'm ready to get home.
All right, nice.
But
I heard you checked in with Jacheco from your honeymoon. Come on, stop doing that. You got to have better things to do.
Yeah, we had Jacheco on. He's like, yeah, I heard from Bill Colarulo. He's in Aruba asking me about the off-season camp. Yeah. I'm like, oh my goodness, Bill.
Well, I couldn't stay away, and then I'm watching the press conferences from Aruba, and I know this has been beaten to talk about beating a dead horse with Jalen-Hurts and Nick Sirianni, but I was watching it live on the beach, and I'm like, you got to be kidding me. Come on, man. Just say something.
Yeah.
Say something nice. Why are you giving
us We're going to resuscitate that horse and bring it up because we know you want to talk about it. It came out that from our buddy Jeff McClain that key members, key figures in the Eagles organization were disappointed by the way Jalen handled that. And my argument, well, why wouldn't they be? Because it was so easy. It was a layup. Just say something nice and move on. That to me is the biggest problem with it. What is Bill Colarulo's take?
The exact same one. I'm sitting there, literally, I'm watching it on my honeymoon on the beach, and I'm thinking, okay, here comes a softball question. I mean, it was a softball question. It would have been so easy to just say, it shows how committed he is to winning, or he's willing to do anything to get this team to its ultimate goal. Done. You didn't have to say much. Just give something positive and move on. And look, Jalen-Hurts is a smart guy. And the Eagles media team, they had him prepared for a question like that. That's why, to me, it just was, how did you not have a response already prepared? And I know he doesn't like to say a lot, and he tries to avoid saying things that are going to result in us doing exactly this. But by not saying anything, now we have a month and a half until we talk to anyone at the Eagles again. And this is all we can sink our teeth into. So I hated it. And it doesn't surprise me that people inside the Eagles organization weren't happy with it for that very reason. You knew by not saying anything or by, pausing. And it just, to me, and I've been a supporter of Sirianni. You know that. I've battled for him. I don't think he should have been fired. But everything we heard during the season last year, off season, was that this organization wanted Jalen-Hurts to be a better leader this year. To me, that wasn't showing that you're a better leader by not reading the room, understanding the way the Philly media works, whether we're right or not. I know we can be tough. Say something, man. I mean, I was freaking out. I actually said it to my wife on the beach. I said, you got to be kidding me. And then I rewinded it and played it for her. And she's like, oh, I can't stand him in press conferences.
It's an unforced error. That's how I described it, to use a tennis term. Unforced error. And for those people that are mad at us, the Philly media, what are we supposed to do? We didn't create this.
Yeah,
the quarterback created this.
Yeah, we're getting killed. I've seen it. They were talking about it on the Fanatics morning show today, and I see people coming at them on Twitter. You Philly media just trying to stir controversy. This is what they gave us. I mean, this is why I think they were so angry inside the organization. This isn't like the middle of the season where the next day you get the team again and they're able to correct whatever was said. There's a month and a half now of no news coming out of the NovaCare complex, and the last thing we're left with is that. Bothered me.
Well, Bill, now it looks like the relationship between the head coach and quarterback isn't great. Let's just say for a second it is. Maybe it's not. Maybe this is way overblown and they're on fine terms. If it's not, how far can this team go? You've been a guy that's been high on the Nick Sirianni, Jalen-Hurts combination. I remember when you did your list of the best coach quarterback duos in the NFC. How far can this team go if the relationship between the coach and the quarterback is fractured?
if they win, if they win early, I think it will heal all, right? Winning cures all. I think if they can come out and they don't hit a lot of controversy or adversity early, I think they'll be okay. Where this can rear its ugly head is if things don't come out to a hot start, they start to maybe lose a couple of games, then I think it can become a bigger problem than we want it to be. But I don't think it's a requirement. I do think if Kellen Moore and Jalen Hurts have a good relationship and the offense is firing on all cylinders and Vic Fangio is running the defense and they don't hit a lot of adversity this season, then I don't think we'll be talking about this come September, October. But if things aren't firing on all cylinders right away, they lose a couple of games early, I think the noise is going to be really loud and we're all going to be talking about the June 10th or whatever the hell it was press conference that Jalen Hurts gave.
One thing Jalen had no problem getting out, Bill, was the idea that the offense is 95% new. And he's very intentional. And that's why I think there's also a problem with his lack of comments with Nick Sirianni. He's generally very, on point and he gets across what he wants to get across. That 95% to me was an attempt to spin just how bad the first team offense looked in minicamp, which is meaningless. I'll be the first to say it. I say it all the time. It's not going to matter. But, it's been a struggle. And I bring that up to bring up, should we expect the greatest show on turf week 1 in Brazil against Green Bay? I think there's going to be some growing pains and people should prepare themselves.
Yeah, I'm with you. One on Jalen Hurts. I do think him saying it was 95% new was because there's probably a little bit of frustration. Look, we know this is his 10th play caller in the last 9 years. Now he's learning a new offense again. And I do think he was probably a little bit frustrated at minicamp. But I've been preaching this for a couple of months now. Patience to start the season, because I don't expect them to come out. It's possible, but I don't expect them to be firing on all cylinders in week 1 when you are putting that much of a new offense into place. I think they'll get there. I think they're good enough with the weapons they have. I think the offensive line actually has the potential to be better than it was last season, even losing Jason Kelce.
Wow, that's a big statement right there.
I think it has the potential. I'm not saying it will happen, but if you look at the left side of the line, Jordan Mailata, Landon Dickerson, I don't think we've seen their ceiling yet. So I'm expecting them to be better this year than we even saw last year. I think Cam Jurgens at center, he's not going to be Jason Kelce. No one will be. But I think he's going to be solid at center. And I'm hopeful that you're going to get better right guard play, whether it's Tyler Steen in his second season, whether it's Mekhi Becton transitioning over. I think you'll get better right guard play than you got last year with Cam Jurgens. I thought it was up and down, and then you still have Lane Johnson. So if all those things happen, and I know it's an if, I think the offensive line can actually be better. Not guaranteeing it, but it's possible. So when you factor that into the equation, along with all the weapons that they have, I do think the offense will be very good. I just agree with John. I think it's going to take some time to get there. I don't know if you'll see it right away. I think there will be some growing pains. And I think we need to be patient because, like I just said, if adversity starts to hit early and they're not firing on all cylinders, the noise is going to be so loud, especially all the people who didn't want to see Sirianni come back. God forbid they go into that bye week 1-3.
Oh,
if you're frustrated with the Philly media now, it's going to be real ugly come week 5.
Yeah, and I don't even think they'll be mad at us at that point. I think they'll be so mad at the team and everything that they'll be understanding what's going on. Bill, I want to ask you, we haven't had you on in a couple of weeks, so we haven't really had a chance to talk to you about the emerging young cornerbacks who seem to be dominating the spring headlines. And this was prior to Jalen botching the question, which has now sent us into a tailspin. But what do you make of all the young cornerbacks stepping up? Seems like it could be an improved secondary. A lot of young guys, a lot of unproven guys, but it certainly seems like a lot of them are ready to take a next step forward. How do you see it?
Yeah, I'm excited. And going into the draft, I was the one saying, look, I don't want to see them trade up to take a corner in the first round because I thought the secondary was better than some other positions on the defensive side of the football, mainly because I was so excited about Kelee Ringo in year 2. And I kept saying, don't rule him out as potentially being a starter. Well, then Quinyon Mitchell falls to them, which I'm happy they took him. I think that was a smart move. But then there were people saying he's going to be the starter week 1. And again, I was preaching patience, saying don't rule out Kelee Ringo. This is a guy who, number one, is younger than Quinyon Mitchell. People forget how young Kelee actually was when they drafted him. You knew you were getting a raw player, but they obviously liked him enough to trade a 3rd-round pick to move up into the 4th round to take Kelee. And he's got all of the attributes you want. He's big. He's fast. He's strong. He's athletic as hell. So I was excited to see him in year 2. And then we were excited about Isaiah Rodgers, but it was, well, what can you expect from a guy who's been off for a year? And from all accounts from minicamp, he looks like he's not rusty either. So now you factor those 2 guys into the equation with the young rookies, Quinyon and Cooper DeJean, and you still have Darius Slay. And I'm not ruling out Avonte Maddox. I know 13 games in 2 seasons, but if he can stay healthy, another big if, this secondary group, it could be actually a strength on this team if they all stay healthy. Because Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, we've talked about this before, I think, John.
Yeah.
He's another player who has to stay healthy. But if all those things happen, could be very good. But I'm really excited to see Kelee Ringo this year. That's the one player that I'm probably most excited about on the defense.
Yeah, I'm with you with Ringo. I love Ringo's upside as a player. You and I have talked about that. I mean, there's a guy, if he probably stayed in college another year, he might have been a 1st-round pick. I mean, because, he's going to have success almost at Georgia. It could go bad. I mean, Eli Ricks is a guy we're not talking about. I just wrote about him on Sports Illustrated because, when that vacuum happens and Ringo looks good and Rodgers looks good and Mitchell looks good, DeJean looks good, all of a sudden, where does Eli Ricks fit? But it's a nice problem to have. It's a first world problem. It's a rich man's problem. And that's considering where the Eagles were last season. It's pretty amazing how Howie Roseman has turned over that cornerback room and brought in talent. Now, same thing I said with the offense, though, Bill. These guys are young. There's probably going to be hiccups. But it's a nice position to be in. And who knows? Maybe you get those startup costs out of the way early in the season, late in the season. It gets better. I think that's your hope. And Reed Blankenship, there's the one guy. And I know you got to run, so I'll end it at Bill Colarulo because you're going to be on at 10 a.m. over
I was supposed to have the day off today, but they just called me. So
they just called you. So you're doing double duty. But Reed Blankenship, there's a guy, I don't know, he can just play. And for whatever reason, not for whatever reason, because he was undrafted. I went through this with TJ Edwards. At some point, you got to say, all right, he was undrafted. They missed. He can play. That's where I am with Reed Blankenship. Where are you?
I'm excited to see what he does in year 3, but he's another guy that we haven't seen play a 17-game season. His first 2 years, he didn't play all 17 games either. So, I want to see him improve because I think there were some up and downs in his first 2 seasons, which you expect from an undrafted rookie. But again, health. I want to see him do it for a 17-game season. But I will say, when I look overall at this defense, and again, just like when I talked about the offensive line, there's a lot of ifs. But I think this defense has a lot higher upside than what you saw last year. Because you looked at the safety room last year, and we were relying on guys like Justin Evans and Terrell Edmonds. Even the cornerbacks. Yes, you were excited. Most people didn't see the James Bradbury drop-off coming, but you weren't expecting Slay and Bradbury to elevate their game. You were just hoping that they would be the same players they were in 2022, where now you have players where, wow, we haven't seen their ceiling yet. Same thing at linebacker. You brought in Nick Morrow last year. You knew at best what you were getting from Nick Morrow. Well, now you got Devin White. I'm not sold on Devin White yet, but the upside is there. So that's the one thing I'm excited about with the defense is I think they have more upside. And Reed Blankenship is a guy where, in year 3, I'm hoping to see him really take that leap. But I went and looked at some of the Super Bowl teams over the last 10 seasons. I actually did a video on this on my Instagram yesterday. The last 20 teams to make a Super Bowl, 15 of them had a top 10 defense. And you look at the Philadelphia Eagles throughout their franchise history, they've never been to a Super Bowl not having a top 7 defense. So I look at this defense and I'm like, man, is it realistic, though, even with Vic Fangio and with these new pieces, that they could go from 30 to top 10, top 7? And I don't
look
know
at it this way. They went from top 2 or top 3 to bottom 5 in 1 year. So why
they
can't
were
you
number
do the
2
opposite?
in yards. They went down to 26, but they were number 7 in points. They dropped all the way to 30.
Yeah.
So I'm talking about
and
points
they
against.
were 31st, I think, in pass defense, and they were number 1 the year
before.
They went 1 to 31 in pass defense. So why can't you do the opposite?
So, well, I went a little further, John, and I dug deeper, and I was like, well, what has Vic Fangio done as defensive coordinator over that same span? So in the last 10 years, he's been a head coach or a DC 9 times, because that 1 year he was just a consultant here in Philly. It's feast or famine, man. 5 out of the 9, top 10. 4 out of the 9, bottom 20. Yeah. So curious to see. And then I know there's people out there, well, look what he did a couple years into being the DC. Well, we don't have a couple of years. It's got to be his first year here in Philadelphia. He's got to turn this defense around, because as good as the offense, I think, can be, we went into last year saying the offense is going to be so good, it doesn't matter that they let both their linebackers and both their starting safeties walk. Offense is going to be so good. Didn't really work out for us.
Yeah, what's the elephant in the room here? Who were the 2 best defensive players in the Philadelphia Eagles last year?
Hassan Reddick, who's gone. And I would say Darius Slay would be my other one.
I would say Fletcher Cox. So Fletcher Cox.
Fletcher Cox.
Gone,
yeah, that Fletcher Cox.
And Hassan Reddick is gone. And we need to make a catastrophic jump up, counting on a lot of young guys. Look, I'm optimistic about the young guys. I'm pretty excited about all of them. But boy, this is a big ask when you really break it down.
And you talk about Fletcher Cox, and I've said this on the air before. I know it's not fair sometimes to ask that much of a year 2 player. Jalen Carter has to replace Fletcher Cox. I'm not asking Cam Jurgens to replace Jason Kelce. There's only one Jason Kelce. But I think Jalen Carter, yes, sorry, year 2, you have to replace an Eagles legend in Fletcher Cox. He needs to be that good this season, I think, for that defense to be able to get to the potential that I think they can. Because if Jalen Carter can dominate on the interior, you both know this. You create interior pressure in the NFL, you can disrupt a lot of opposing offenses, and that can have a ripple effect throughout the entire defense.
Yeah, it makes life easier in that young secondary.
Absolutely.
Big time.
Yeah. It's a big part of it. At Bill Colarulo on X. Make sure you follow Bill there. Listen to him today. What are we saying? 10 a.m. Is that when you're going to be?
Yeah, I'll be on 10 to 2 today with Bob Cooney. Not sure what's on the agenda because, like I said, I just got the text saying, "Hey, can you get here to the station?" So as soon as I get off the air, I got to run up to Bala Kinwood. So
all right, buddy, be careful. You'll make it. Bob Cooney can handle 10 minutes, so even if you're late, but safe travels over there. And we're going to be listening to great Bill Colarulo, a married man now. Congratulations.
Man. And we're almost there. They just released it. When do the Eagles report?
July 23rd.
We're almost there, man. The dog days of summer.
July 24th, yeah.
But our Fighting Phils are making it a little bit easier to get through.
Yeah, I saw you were down at the game the other night. How was that?
Oh, I was there last night. It was good to have them back home, and I think they were happy to be back home, weren't they?
They definitely were.
My God.
They needed it. They went on a little bit of a slide there on the road. But all right, Bill, thanks for checking in.
Appreciate you, boys.
We'll talk to you next week. Have a good show.
Thanks, Bill.
See you next week. Thanks.
See you, man. There's Bill Colarulo joining us on Birds 365. Good to talk to Bill again. It was good to hear his take on the Jalen and Nick stuff. Normally he's a good voice of reason, so good to talk to him about that. We'll go to a commercial break. Johnny Mac and I will come back. We got now a good segment here. Between we'll have Thomas Mott, as I mentioned, in hour number 2, a first-time guest on Birds 365. By the way, John, we didn't even give the shout this morning. That's my fault. Show number 800, everybody.
800, yeah. That's my fault. I was talking about it.
Yeah, I know, but I'm the host. I got to come in here hot and say, welcome into the 800th edition of Birds 365. So thanks, everybody in the chat. Thank you, Johnny Mac. 800 shows on 800. Birds 365. That's
million plus podcast downloads, I'm told. Yeah. So there
well over that now. I mean, well over 1 million on the podcast. We got probably well over 5 to 10 million on the YouTube channel. I would say it's north of 10 million, but I'd have to go back and look. I think we have 35 or 40 million views on the whole channel. Birds 365 has been obviously a massive part of that. So pretty good stuff. Thanks everybody in the chat for making the show grow and for keeping it all possible. So we appreciate all you. We'll hit a commercial break. Coming up next, Johnny Mac and I will have a full segment to go, and then we'll talk to Thomas Mott in hour number 2. So stay tuned, everybody, on Birds 365.
If you missed any of today's show on the JAKIB Media channel, listen to the podcast on your way home. Available on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify.